Hello and welcome to The Popcorn Isn't Real. I'm Leif Eric and I'm here with my co-host Torvald. This is the podcast where we focus on films and fan theories.
Before we start talking about our real theory, I just want our listeners to feel a little bit how I feel right now, because I think that our listeners have no idea about the ride that we're about to embark on.
Oh, it's going to be a good ride.
Well, okay, so we've covered some wild fan theories. So let me just get this straight right off the bat. As far as I understand, you're about to take us on a journey, somehow connecting the 6 Cinderella Story teenage rom-coms and the Ginger Snaps werewolf horror trilogy from early 2000.
Yes.
And the Orphan Black TV series from the 2010s.
Yes.
You're going to connect all of these different properties, and you're going to prove that this is one massive expanded universe where clones are being produced by the government and trained to become secret agents by living out a staged Cinderella fantasy. Have I understood this correctly?
Yes, I don't think I need to do any more.
Oh, no.
You've proven my case right there.
All I can say is you're going to have your work cut out for you.
It actually hinges on the movie Ginger Snaps, which is a teenage horror film.
You might as well call
werewolves.
it Hinger Snaps.
I could.
Sorry.
I can prove that Orphan Black and Ginger Snaps are in the same universe. And extrapolating from there, I can then prove that Ginger Snaps and A Cinderella Story are in the same universe. We need to not only prove that the same actor is in 2 different series, but also prove in at least one of these series, the actor has a clone.
I just want to point out that I think one of the main dots connecting many of these properties is the famed director John Fawcett, who we might have the privilege of hearing from later in this episode.
I'm here with an amazing writer, showmaker, known for creating Ginger Snaps as well as the amazing show Orphan Black. Welcome to the podcast, John Fawcett.
Hello. Good to be here.
Always been a fan of Ginger Snaps, and I loved Orphan Black. First, I wanted to ask how you came to create Orphan Black.
Probably in a similar way that Ginger Snaps began. I mean, it really kind of usually begins for me with characters or a situation, a feeling or a genre that I want to work in. And for Orphan Black, what I had this idea of a woman who is down on it was a subway platform, and she sees this woman acting weird. And in the original version, she was looking across the tracks. She wasn't on the same platform. So it was more of a subway in the original version. And she is watching this woman take her shoes off and stuff like that, and then sees that they make eye contact, and it's her doppelganger, basically, and they lock eyes in the moment, and just a moment later she jumps in front of a train and kills herself. I think that might have been all that I had. I don't know if I even had the fact that she steals her purse. I pitched that to Graham Manson, and I had been talking about doing a feature together for quite a while. We knew each other from the Canadian Film Center, and this was back in probably 2001. In around the same time period that Ginger Snaps was coming out. And I wanted to make another movie, and I pitched him this idea. And so I said, and they see each other. And he goes, okay, and then what? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know that it was going to be clones. I didn't know if it was like some sort of sci-fi premise where this was an alien that looked like her, if it was another dimension, like where you're looking across time at each other. It took a long time to develop this, but years later, when we finally were in a position where we were going to try and get production partners, I pitched the opening scene, and that's what hooked everybody. Everybody was like, God, what's that? And then you're like, it's clones. So that was kind of how it began anyway.
I always say to people, watch Orphan Black. Just watch the first 5 minutes and you'll be hooked and you'll watch the rest. It's an amazing hook. I think it's probably one of the best pilots I've ever seen.
because it began in that time period as Ginger Snaps was coming out. It grew out of the DNA of Ginger Snaps. That all that stuff was very fresh in my mind. I still feel like Orphan Black is like a sibling to Ginger Snaps.
So, I mean, we're going to jump all over the place, but I'm going to start with my theory for what this Cinderella clone program is. This is a clone training program where they take these young girls who have special skills that they have cloned, and then they use kind of these, my favorite subject, MK Ultra mind programming kind of things on them, including abuse from stepsisters and step parents.
Oh, whoa, so all the abuse was stage 2. Okay.
Yeah, that's to program them, to get them to sort of go have these dissociative states. And what they're trying to do is get their Cinderella clone close to someone who is rich and powerful. And they're pairing up their Cinderella clones with people who are rich and powerful so that they can have a secret agent essentially in all the most powerful places in society. The prince doesn't know what's going on. He's the mark.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the Cinderella herself probably doesn't know what's going on because she's kind of dissociated, right? They can activate her whenever they want, and she'll do things, maybe subconsciously that they've programmed into her. And she may be surrounded by other clones sometimes, as well as she always has a handler. You can call them a monitor as well, someone who is in charge of that clone and doesn't let any secrets out to that clone, but just keeps an eye on them and keeps them doing whatever their mission is supposed to be.
Okay.
These programs come about in the series Orphan Black. So we're going to talk about kind of how the clone program works in Orphan Black and see how it could also work in the Cinderella Story series. The first thing I need to prove, the hinge point of this entire universe,
Ginger Snaps.
Yes. Orphan Black and Ginger Snaps are in the same universe.
Ginger Snaps. The whole movie, although being a movie about werewolves, is actually an analogy for magical puberty.
Yes. It's turning red.
Everyone's going to get that reference. No, the movie is basically, it's about 2 teenage girls getting infected and becoming werewolves as they also go through puberty. Honestly, I will say that the analogy is much more cohesive in Ginger Snaps than it is in Turning Red. The analogy in Turning Red is just all over the place. Anyway, Ginger Snap. 2 sisters have a very close bond, but they're kind of like goth, emo sisters. And then their life is turned upside down when the older sister gets bitten, infected by a werewolf, and starts to become a werewolf.
I always loved the metaphor of how, werewolf is puberty, but it's not just puberty. It's like the idea that you grow apart from people as you get older. Your siblings change and there's nothing you can do about it, And it's this feeling of how Bridget is so reliant on her sister, but as they become adults, they have to become their own humans, their own people. And I love how Bridget has to become her own person. And I think it's just a beautiful story.
Thank you. And I mean, the emotional part of the story was really, really important to us. It is something that really allows people to embrace the monster, and not just embrace it, but like identify with it. In a lot of monster movies, it's very hard to like have any kind of emotional attachment to a monster or to someone who is becoming a monster. But the sister bond and the betrayal and the separation and the love between the 2 of them was always kind of key. What was their little pact? 16 dead or dead in the scene, together forever.
Yeah. Out by 16 or dead in the scene, but together for fucking ever.
Yeah.
Now, none of this is going to make any sense unless we also talk about what Orphan Black is about. It is about a group of people who find out they all look the same. They're all played by amazing actor Tatiana Maslany.
Dude.
She is so amazing, and she's so good in all those roles. They find out that they are clones. There is a company called Neolution that created them and is trying to use them to create body part replacement, for body modification, for like healing factor, Wolverine style. They created 264 clones and then adopted these orphans out to different people. And they assigned each one of these clones a monitor, which is a person who watches over them and occasionally like messes with them.
Wow.
They all have a genetic defect that will manifest at some point and cause them to die.
Oh my
Usually
gosh.
in the female clones, it has to do with their uterine cancer or whatever. Almost all clones except 2 cannot have kids. The project that created all these Tatiana Maslany clones is called Project Leda. Find out in season 3, there's a project called Project Castor that cloned a bunch of boys. There's boy clones running around. And unfortunately, I think Tatiana Maslany is an amazing actor. Not to speak ill of the actor who plays the boy clones, but he's not very good, and all the boy clones have exactly the same personality and voice and hair. So they're all kind of the same, except for one named Ira, who's kind of a nerd. At least they did him a little different. But the boy clones all have a similar genetic defect where their brains melt like out their nose and they die.
Real short end of the stick.
No, the boy clones really suck. And by the end of the 3rd season, when they get introduced, almost all of them are dead. There's like maybe 2 left. And by the end of the series, those 2 are also dead. I always, just because Jordan Gavaris is amazing as Felix. I always wanted to see what would happen if there were Felix clones and he got to play other kinds of characters. And I wonder if that was ever an idea you guys talked about.
Can you imagine if there was Felix clones? Like, the show would have been so good.
Yeah.
This would have been like, the show was really great, but like the show would have been like up there if we'd have gone for the Felix clones. Yeah. I think there was a point where we discussed it.
Yeah.
But it was like, because we knew that we needed male clones in the show. We knew that when we knew it from a ways out, but we were not always like, who is it? And I think that there was long discussions about it being Jordan, but that we wanted to preserve that character and not let everything become too insane around Sarah. That like there was some sense of stability by the fact that she just had one brother, not a whole bunch of brothers. And that being said, Jordan could have knocked that one out of the park. Yeah. Jordan could have done like he could have easily done 10 different characters and you would have believed every single last one of them. Yeah. He's a wonderful actor and such a great human being. Yeah. So I wish we could do that as maybe we should do that as a spinoff.
Yeah. The Felix clones.
The Felix clones. And Felix suddenly realizes that he's been cloned.
You know, I think it would just be amazing to see Felix, because he's so flamboyant, and then to see him playing like a super masculine macho character or something like that. It's just a contrast. Would be fun. But that makes me super happy to hear you say that it was considered, because when I was watching the season where they reveal, I think it's the end of season 2, they reveal the male clones and it shows one from behind. So you don't see the face. And I grabbed my wife. I was like, it's Felix. It's going to be Felix. It's going to be Felix. And then he turned around and it wasn't Felix. But I said to her, I was like, I bet they considered Felix. So that makes me happy.
But when we were working on the show, we considered every insane option all the time. Like, of all the storylines, we were like, what is the weirdest, craziest direction we could go in? How do we do, what do you think? And we'd read fan theory and we'd be like, okay, this is what the fans are theorizing. So we can't do that.
Do the opposite.
We have to go the other direction. So we were always trying to dodge fans.
You made my day by telling me that. But one thing that is important to know about all these clones is they have a high penchant for violence.
You're damn right.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good quote.
Just waiting for any time where I could emphatically agree with you.
Damn right. Let's say it a few more times. Let's rewind it. Say it again.
Damn right. You're damn right. Sorry. You're damn right. There you go. I figured out how to do an American accent.
They are very violent. They have violent tendencies. some of the scientists talk about, well, that this is kind of troubling that they all have these violent tendencies. One of them, Allison, the soccer mom clone, even though she's supposed to be like this nice soccer mom, they have fun showing her violent tendencies throughout the series. At one point, she ties up her husband and burns him with a hot glue gun to like torture him to get him to talk. It turns out, even though she seems like the most, normal put together soccer mom one, she's one of the craziest of the clones, but not the craziest. The craziest clone is named Helena. Helena's the best character in the show because she is like the Knuckles of the show.
Wow.
Like, she is a trained assassin and a psychotic former cult member. She was raised by like a Catholic convent and then like a Ukrainian assassin and then like a weird North American puritanical cult. And they bleached her hair as like a punishment at this Catholic orphanage when she was like 10. And for some reason, it stayed bleached the rest of her life.
It's like that permanent kind of bleach. Okay.
She's psychotic. She'll kill anyone who she thinks is against her. And she's insanely good at killing. And every single season is just this almost infuriating wait while they say, no, don't let Helena go in there. She'll kill everyone.
Wow.
Until you're just waiting. You're like, just let her kill everyone. It would solve all your problems. Finally, in like the second to last episode of every season, the gloves come off. They send Helena in
and she kills
everyone and resolves the problem.
Oh man, that sounds like
and they have to come up with a lot of crazy excuses for why they need, like, let's send Helena over here to this farm. Now Helena's pregnant.
Helena had an interesting just trajectory as a character to begin with, because, from the get-go, she was an assassin. She was always kind of the bad guy. And, it's funny because Helena, even though we knew that how Sarah and Helena are related, that kind of grew out of this desire to kind of have Helena be understood.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to see her like murdering and killing and being afraid of her. Like she's the scary antagonist. But then why is she doing the things that she's doing? And really, like, it became this kind of mission to kind of understand her and go, maybe she came from had a really bad childhood. Maybe if she just got some therapy and some medication, she could be like a normal person.
Yeah.
Maybe if we loved her a little bit, like she wouldn't be a murderer, but at the same time, be absolutely terrified that she could go off at any moment. And we liked her, and Tat was doing crazy things. Like, it was funny because the whole eating food thing, like, was something that Tatiana just did. It wasn't in the original script. Like, she just sat down and started eating, like, doing this weird eating the muffin. And that was not in the script. That was just Tatiana. We thought that was hilarious. And then we were like, get Helena food whenever we can. Get her, allow her to eat food like in every scene we possibly can because it's funny.
Their children, the two who can have children, which is Sarah and Helena, those are the only two who can have children. Their children have a healing factor and sometimes telepathic powers, but we won't get into that.
Things are getting good.
They have a healing factor that Neolution wants. So the important takeaways from Orphan Black, is that Neolution started this, but there are lots of offshoots. There's Project Leda, there's Project Castor. So even if Neolution is gone by the end of season 5 of Orphan Black, there could be other offshoots that are also doing cloning stuff. And I think that is very reasonable within the universe of Orphan Black, because there's just, in every season, there's some new random organization that shows up, whether it's a cult or a company or a crazy scientist or like an island of Dr. Moreau.
My favorite part was when Sarah looks at the camera and she says, "It's orphan time."
Oh, dude, I like that part too.
It was good.
At the very, very end of the series, last episode of season 5, Helena takes out her diary. She's got like a Ukrainian accent. She's like, "I have been writing in my diary our story I have titled it Orphan Black. And
Whoa,
they're like, whoa.
that's
And
right,
she's like,
dude,
but
that's
why
the
Orphan
title.
Black? And Helena says, well, because we are all orphans. And then Allison is like, but we're not black.
And then it cuts to credits.
Yep, basically.
Wow.
Wah, wah. Back to Ginger Snaps. Now, I believe that the Fitzgerald sisters, the main characters of Ginger Snaps, Bridget and Ginger, contrary to what you might believe from the title, Bridget is the main character, not Ginger.
Yeah, I know. It confused me the first time I watched it, and it confused me this time.
Well, because Bridget doesn't snap, so they couldn't call it Bridget Snaps. So near the beginning of the movie, Ginger and Bridget are coming home, and Ginger says, God, I hate our gene pool. And perhaps that could be a little hint that it's because they're clones.
Whoa. That's crazy because I didn't see any hints whatsoever that they were clones.
Oh, there's lots.
But they're not both clones of the same person, right? They're
not
clones of different people. Okay.
They're clones of different people. They're actually clones of two sisters who lived in the 1800s, which we'll get to.
Oh, wow.
Their mother says near the beginning that they are 3 years late menstruating. It's not normal. And I got to point out that is not normal because they're like 15 and 16.
Womb cancer.
Right. For female clones, there seems to be some sort of defect in the cloning process, as we learned from Orphan Black, that messes up especially the female reproductive organs, and they don't seem to work correctly.
It's true. Like none of the clones are fertile except for Sarah. That's what sets her apart, is that she has babies.
Clones who live in suburbs have sort of a tendency to murder people and then cover it up. As we saw with Allison, the clone in Orphan Black, she did that. And Ginger and Bridget murder a young woman from their school, and they try very badly, I might add, to cover it up and hide the body.
Yeah, they just like leave her fingers in the yard. What are they doing? They knew they ripped off her fingers. Why? I don't even understand how they got in the yard.
We don't need those. The smoking gun, the connection between Orphan Black and Ginger Snaps is that Allison, the soccer mom clone, lives in a suburb called Bailey Downs. Now, Ginger and Bridget live in a suburb called Bailey Downs.
Ooh.
In the theory, the wolf that bites Ginger was created by Neolution. Now, how do we know this? Well, we know that Bailey Downs is just north of Toronto. Toronto is the home of the Dyad Institute, where they do experiments. We know that Neolution would have been around in 1999 because P.T. Westmoreland, or actually John Mathieson, sort of founded the company in the 60s. And according to the wiki, I don't know if this is true, maybe you can weigh on it, but the Dyad Group has been around since 1918.
There's probably a valid argument to be made. Dr. Leakey's influence at Dyad brought in transhumanism, and transhumanism is the desire to grow a tail. The transhumanist movement probably could have created this monster. And I do agree, the Dyad is in Toronto. Bailey Downs is a fictional suburb in Toronto, north of Toronto. I like your north of Toronto thing. I'm down with this. And we put Bailey Downs in both Orphan Black. It began in Ginger Snaps and wound up in Orphan Black. Yeah. One of the interesting notes of all of this, is that in season 1, Graham was running the writing room. Him and I had kind of come up with a number of things to do with season 1, but in that original writer's room was Karen Walton, who wrote Ginger Snaps, the original screenplay.
There is a werewolf in town, just, terrorizing, apparently for quite a while, because this is it's a known issue that dogs are getting eaten. I have 2 questions about that werewolf. One, who was it, or where did it come from? Was it a clone? And number 2, why was that one only eating dogs? Because Ginger only goes after one tiny dog, and then she's like, no, it's humans from now on. I'm going after people. The first werewolf never even hurt a person.
Well, it hurt Ginger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We know that John Fawcett created both, and John Fawcett clearly sees these two as a shared universe, or why would he put Bailey Downs in both? He never explains the existence of that first werewolf, the one who initially bites Ginger and then gets hit by a truck or a van at the beginning of the movie. I think that's because he knew he was going to explain it later on in Orphan Black.
It was definitely human. I don't recall thinking through like who was this dude who attacked her in the woods, but I think it could be valuable to have that discussion now. Just backing up to who attacks Ginger in the woods. One of that has kind of become a real thing in terms of thinking about this as a bigger universe for a television series, for example. So, as we've been kind of looking at building this into a television series, that notion of maybe it didn't really matter who attacked her in the feature film. From a story point of view, it was a mysterious encounter with this creature. In the TV series, it's actually important and is much more intrinsic to the plot.
We know that Bailey Downs is just north of Toronto. We know that Toronto has the headquarters of Neolution with a building called the Dyad Institute. Now, I don't know if the Dyad Institute had necessarily been totally built back in 1999 when the Fitzgerald sisters were in Bailey Downs. Probably Neolution existed, right? It's not just some pop-up, some startup company. It's been around for at least since the 60s, because that's when we find out that Susan Duncan, one of the founders, founded it along with P.T. Westermore. This is a crazy company that does crazy things. You remember our Life of Pi and Spider-Man episode?
This is like
if Richard Parker had started a company, it would be Neolution. Like Orphan Black has some crazy stuff. They have a guy who has a tail that ends up getting cut off, which is very similar to the tail that almost
Ginger
gets
Snaps.
cut off in Ginger Snaps. Did your experience directing a movie where you had to create a prosthetic moving tail help when you came to Orphan Black?
I suppose it did. I mean, I didn't specifically direct that episode with the tail chopping, but I was definitely around as we were designing the tail. It was Graham that came up with the idea that the Neolutionist should have a tail. Yeah. And I was like, that's an idiotic idea. I love it. And I don't know if we were at the time drawing comparisons to Ginger Snaps, but then again, Karen Walton was in the writer's room, so I don't know where the idea came from. I just know that in the original Ginger Snaps, there's some horrifying moments with discovering that your sister is growing a tail and this like wiggly thing and like wanting to cut it off, because there is a scene where Ginger is freaking out in the bathroom and literally is cutting her tail off. It's, a fairly disturbing scene, and, there's a lot of blood, and it's very, it's kind of, scene. It's a good scene.
On this island of Dr. Moreau they go to, there's like a freaking werewolf on the island. They keep saying it's a bear. So in the last season of Orphan Black, Sarah goes to this island and there's like something growling and attacking her and scratching her.
Oh, but then she would become a werewolf.
Right. Well, this guy's a little bit different. They keep calling it a bear, but then when we finally see it, it's just a guy.
No, it's not a bear.
They keep acting like it's a monster. I think maybe they didn't have the budget to make him look like a monster, because he's just kind of a guy who's maybe slightly larger than normal and just like attacks pigs and eats them.
Whoa!
But he has unique DNA, and he was one of the first people they experimented on back in the 60s because something unique about his DNA.
I think it's plausible that a PT collected a werewolf back in the 1800s, that some of that DNA may have found its way into this guy. Like he was, clearly PT's been messing around genetically, and something went awry here. Who knows what genetic mutation is in this poor dude?
I think it's not too much of a stretch when we know they're already in the same universe because of Bailey Downs to say that maybe Neolution was doing experiments already at the Dyad Institute in Toronto, and the werewolf was created because they were trying to find this healing factor. We know that Ginger heals quickly when she is cut or scratched by the werewolf. Her cuts heal very quickly.
No, everyone who gets cut by a werewolf, they heal quickly, so that makes sense.
Exactly. And in Ginger Snaps Unleashed, the second one, Bridget, who is now also turning into a werewolf, keeps cutting herself and then timing how long.
She didn't cure herself?
Turns out the cure's not very effective.
No, it makes sense.
Which kind of makes sense.
Just like boil
Just
some flowers and then inject it into their veins.
Yeah. Bridget cuts herself and then she times how long it takes her to heal. Well, this is very similar to season 5 of Orphan Black, where a little girl named Kira, who has a healing factor, cuts herself and then times how long it takes her to heal.
Whoa.
And Kira is she's the MacGuffin. She's the thing Neolution keeps trying to get. She's Sarah Manning's daughter. And it's because of her healing factor. I always wondered if this was a deliberate Easter egg.
Gosh, it's so funny. I don't think so. It must have been a subconscious thing, because the whole concept of Kira all came out of the aftermath of Ginger Snap. So Who knows?
So it's clear that Neolution really wants this healing factor. I believe that they did experiments earlier on in the 90s that resulted in some sort of feral creature similar to the one on the island, even if it wasn't all hairy and werewolf-like, that escaped from the Diet Institute into Toronto and ended up north in Bailey Downs and was eating dogs because people just leave their dogs out.
But it didn't attack humans because it's not that mean.
Well, because it only attacks at night.
And people aren't out at night. Okay, I get it.
Now, one thing I always loved is that werewolves in this universe are not supernatural. Sam says, see now biology. That's something you can sink your teeth into, so to speak.
I didn't really want to make a fantasy werewolf. I hadn't seen anything done that I liked. The only good werewolf movie at the time was American Werewolf in London. That was it. Mm-hmm. Everything else was crap. So all of the influences for Ginger Snaps came from other places. They didn't come from werewolf movies. I would definitely say that we leaned into some David Cronenberg, like The Fly. And you lean into things like that, you are kind of starting to embrace science more than magic or mythology. Perhaps it came from something real and then just kind of turned into this fantastic story. But it actually may have come from something real to begin with.
I believe that Pam, their mother, who they never call mother, they call her Pam. Oddly enough, they call their dad, but
yeah, I guess they like him more than Pam.
I believe that she is their monitor, their handler.
She is very dedicated to them. She's she's gonna skip town with them.
Right. Well, she has a contingency already planned out. She finds the fingers, and she's not even surprised. The dad who finds them is just oh. Pam just picks them up. Is oh, don't worry. These are just one of their props, even though she knows they're not. She covers so well. She's not even shocked.
I honestly expected her to take a bite of the finger and be it's just corn syrup, just like Ginger had done in the previous scene with the blood. I really expected her to do it, but of course she didn't.
She immediately has a contingency plan. Pam does. No hesitation whatsoever. She's okay, I'm going to pick up Bridget. I'm going to pick up Ginger. Tomorrow, first thing, I'm going to let the house fill with gas and we'll light a match. We'll start fresh, just us girls, leaving Dad behind. He'll just blame me. They all will. She seems to take personal responsibility, probably because she's their handler. She was supposed to keep them under control and she didn't.
Yeah. And you don't think it could possibly just be because she loves her daughters?
Okay, yes, she does love her daughters. She's raised them. But at the same time, I don't think most moms would jump to, I'll let the house fill with gas and light a match tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah. But I
think that's a very extreme reaction.
Absolutely. But I think John Fawcett did clearly take steps to imply that this mom is desperate for a connection with her daughters. And as soon as they're having their period, she's yes, period. We can talk about this. And as soon as they're asking about boys, she's oh, I'll tell you all about boys. Right.
Right. Well, but also because she's their monitor and she's got to be interested in when they have their
That's
first
true.
period,
Yeah. She just wants to connect with them about anything.
Because she's supposed to relay back to Neolution any biological things that happen with them.
That's no parent could possibly take an interest in their children. This has to be a conspiracy.
We've thought Pam was this big ditz who had no clue what was going on. And by the end of the movie, we realize Pam knows a lot more than we thought she did. And Pam's smarter than we thought she was. This is like an emotional moment where she's being vulnerable, essentially saying she's responsible for this behavior somehow. Like she messed up as a parent, but then is kind of excited about the fact that they can start over. They can ditch the dad and it can just be the girls and we can ride off into the sun. I think she just wants to spend time with her daughters. Yeah. And now they have something in common, whereas before they had nothing in common at all. Even though it's illegal, it's criminal, we can all be together. And I think that there's something sad and tragic about Pam. And I wish that we had, like, maybe there had been another answer for Pam. Like, I wanted to take Pam with us somehow.
Coincidences seem to abound in this universe because it is a pretty big coincidence that these two girls who are clones made by this company would happen to be the exact people who get accidentally infected by the werewolf, who is also a genetic product of this company, which just happened to be loose in this town.
I believe that the werewolf was actually attracted to them by smell, not just because Ginger was on her period. We know from Orphan Black Season 5 that when they find someone with unique DNA, they keep that person and try to harvest that DNA with whatever's special about it. I believe that they originally got the DNA to create this werewolf that heals when they were experimenting with the healing factor. They got it from the original Fitz sisters, who were werewolves back in the 1800s. I think that it was attracted to them because it smelled like them. It was like from their same. It's another clone of them, basically.
Okay, and the Fitz sisters in the movie are clones of the Fitz sisters from the 1800s.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's another really good evidence. In Ginger Snaps Back: The Beginning, there are two people in like the 1800s who look exactly like the Fitzgerald sisters. And their last name is Fitzgerald. So they look exactly like them. It's not just they're their ancestors or something. They are clones of them. They're exactly the same. They're the same actors, right? Like this isn't a coincidence. In a universe where we know Bailey Downs is in Orphan Black, where there are clones, if you find two other people who look exactly like two other people, they've got to be clones.
Yeah.
I think if P.T. Westmoreland was alive back then, which I'm not sure if he was or not.
Well, it's actually a little confusing because there was an original P.T. Westmoreland who was born like late 1800s, I think. And then John Mathieson takes over his persona and pretends to be him still alive hundreds of years later or something.
Yeah, it's a little it's hard for me to even follow that.
Yeah.
I think that I like the concept of the clones being from 1800. I've never really considered that those were clones, but you're right. I think that could be clones. They could be identical clones. I just never really heard that theory before. When we were kind of deciding to do a prequel for Ginger Snaps, I just thought I was going to make it Bridget and Ginger, and I was not going to explain anything. I just wasn't going to say anything about it. I was going to put the same actors in it. We're just going to do it. It's going to be a different origin movie. It's not their ancestors. It's, who knows what that is.
Luckily, you've got fans to explain
it. Yeah, that's a good thing. I have nothing but gratitude for this because, a lot of the time when you're creating these kinds of absurd concepts, sometimes you need some fan logic.
I always did love Ginger Snaps: The Beginning for its... What would it be like if Bridget did decide to go with Ginger? Because I think that's what everyone kind of wonders watching the original Ginger Snaps, is maybe they could have been happy together. And we get to see that in this alternate take.
It's true, right?
Both of the Fitz sisters get infected by a werewolf in Ginger Snaps Back. If they're werewolves, and also they killed a whole bunch of people, then they didn't procreate and have children. Then they're not the ancestors of the Fitzgerald sisters, clones. Right? It doesn't make any sense. So what are they trying to say?
I guess they're saying they're clones.
And I think that werewolves just live for a long time. So I think at some point, Neolution discovered these werewolves and their healing factor and started trying to experiment on them, creating clones. One escaped and sought out its other 2 clones living in Bailey Downs up north.
That poor werewolf that got hit by a truck was a clone of Ginger?
I think it might have been, yes. I see no other explanation.
She wasn't attacking Ginger. She was just like saying hello. She was like licking her, like, oh, I'm so happy to see you.
Just licking hello with her claws.
Yeah. I mean, she's a werewolf. Like, it's hard for her to hold
How else
back.
are you going to do it? Now, this brings us to Ginger Snaps Unleashed. This is the second movie. We find out that Bridget, if she keeps injecting herself with wolfsbane extract, she won't turn into a werewolf, but she has to keep doing it, and she's still kind of changing. She's kind of growing hairs. She's healing faster. Her ears are getting pointy. She ends up unconscious and wakes up at a hospital. Bridget is being asked by the therapist, what is your best case scenario for how you want life to be? Bridget just glares at her and then slowly says, my best case scenario is hair everywhere except my eyeballs, elongation of my spine, a growing taste for feces, and then excruciating death. And in response to this, the therapist writes down lesbian and underlines it 3 times.
What a great therapist. Oh man, that's really good. Lesbian? That's what lesbians do. Get really hairy and love feces.
I don't know how she came to that conclusion. Part of this hospital is like helping girls who are junkies. They think Bridget is a junkie because she overdosed on something. And they're like, but I've never seen this drug before. And they test it and they're like, this isn't a drug. It's a toxin from a plant. It's poisonous. It should have just killed her. She shouldn't be hooked on it. And it's not a drug. It doesn't get you high. So why is she taking it? So that's kind of funny. The important thing in Ginger Snaps Unleashed is at this hospital, Bridget meets a creepy little girl with blonde hair named Ghost. I believe that Ghost is a clone because she has a tendency for violence. She seems like a cute little girl, but actually the reason she lives at this hospital is because she burned her grandmother who was taking care of her, and her grandmother is now in the burn ward. And she eventually takes Bridget back to her house. I actually like this movie, but the ending is just not very satisfying. The end of the movie is her trapping Bridget in her basement and saying that Bridget is now going to turn into a werewolf and become her attack dog, that she's just going to sick on people every night.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Happy ending.
That's the end of the series, too. That's the last one.
That's it.
The reason I believe that Ghost, this creepy little girl, is a clone is because we know this is in the same universe as Orphan Black. And Ghost is played by a young Tatiana Maslany, the person who plays all the clones.
That's the girl from Orphan Black. Whoa.
So she is one of these clones from Project Leda who ended up being taken care of by her quote unquote grandma.
Yeah, she's definitely a clone. Like that's very good evidence.
She's very similar to Helena in a lot of ways with her blonde hair and craziness. So
I think that's good. And that would also kind of, maybe that explains Helena's straight teeth because of the braces that Ghost had. I could definitely see that these two are related. They're both murderers. I think they look fairly similar too.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
That's so funny. So that was where I met Tatiana for the first time, obviously. Was I didn't know Tatiana. She auditioned, and at the time it was her and it was Ellen Page, who's now Elliot Page. Those were the two and Elliot had been in Juno. Tatiana, I hadn't seen her in anything. I don't remember that she'd been in anything, but Tatiana was the one that we fell in love with for this part. And then we all kind of sort of stayed in touch with her. And then years later, here she comes. Like it was like 10 years later when we were auditioning for Orphan Black. And I remember when she showed up to her callbacks, her network callbacks, and which is I don't know if you know anything about the audition process, but the network callbacks are a big deal. That's where like any of the executives show up. Like this is like you've gone through a bunch of auditions and now you've gotten to the final stage. The last thing and all the network people show up. It's usually a room of like 20 people, and it's very intimidating. I would say it's intimidating even for me, but I can imagine being on the other side of this, where you're an actor showing up in a
Yeah.
room. And she rollerbladed to her audition. Like she didn't get an Uber or a drive or anything. She showed up like super sweaty, like on a pair of rollerblades, and
Yeah.
then came in, got herself fixed up, read lines, and then went on and did her thing. Like
Yeah.
uh, that's kind of the epic story of that. The fact that she rollerbladed to her callbacks to me is that speaks volumes about who Tat is, and just the fact that she was just there to just, oh, she's just an open and a free spirit, and that's how she is as fantastic as she is. I think when I said like that was a crazy thing you did, like why just even knowing that you're going to be drenched in sweat, like wreck your face and your makeup and your hair, and she's like, I just wanted all of that pressure to go
Yeah.
away. And when I work out doing something physical, I don't think about all the pressure. I don't know that I would have done that, but
Yeah.
like, and it's interesting because she was so young looking. Like even when we cast her as Ghost, she was probably 17 or 18, but looked like she was 12. By the time she rolled in for Orphan Black, she had never actually played an adult character. She'd
Yeah.
only played teenagers. It was exciting to just have this little reunion, that
Yeah.
she was a part of Ginger Snaps, and she was a part of, and she is Orphan Black.
She had went from never playing an adult role to playing, 10 adult roles all at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I'm so glad you cast her. I mean, obviously, everyone who's watched Orphan Black knows this, but she's amazing. Just amazing.
Me and Graham and Tatiana were a real force. Like we were really tight and really like loved each other and got along. She would go away and come back with things that she would pitch us ideas essentially and
Yeah.
voices. And she was a big part of creating all those clone characters.
What do you think? Do you think it's possible that the Fitz sisters were clones and that the werewolf came from the
Yeah.
Dyad Institute?
Honestly, now all I want to do is go away and write the actual mashup version where these two, like, I want to like have both living in the same world and make one show out of it. I really want to. I want to make it. I want to bring it all together. I want
Yeah.
to give people real answers because it's clear that you've hit upon the secret truth. And I think it would be good now to just let people actually truly enjoy it, like, and really follow it through with everything that has now been exposed.
Awesome. Thank you. And you're halfway there. I mean, the Bailey Downs connection. Well, so I have read this bit of trivia on IMDb, and maybe you can tell us if it's true. Lucy Lawless did the voice of the PA system at the school. Is that correct?
She did. She did.
That's
She did.
awesome.
I was like, the thing is, so I was, Lucy, can you just do this hilarious cameo for me? I just want you to do the voice on all the and she read it in a weird voice. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want you to read it like, and she just recorded it that way. And then when she was like, here you go, what do you think? I was a little disappointed because I wanted you to be able to recognize
Yeah.
her. So I just wanted her to read it normal, and she read it like in a kind of a weird voice. But yes, it's Lucy Lawless.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
worked for Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert's company, and so I was
Did
often,
you?
yeah, I was often
Ah,
surrounded by Lucy Lawless memorabilia in Rob's office.
did you ever get to meet her?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I got to
She's
meet.
like literally she's like one of my favorite humans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's just like she's awesome. Like she's one of my favorite humans on the
Yeah.
planet.
I'm sure it makes sense to you, but to me, I'm just like, Lucy Lawless? She's from New Zealand. What's she doing in a Canadian indie horror film?
I directed many, many episodes of Xena Warrior Princess. I seem to recall that I was directing in New Zealand either right before I made Ginger Snaps or right after. And I know that when I was there, I was telling them like I have this movie that I'm making as well. There was a bunch of tricks that I learned in making Xena that I like used in Ginger Snaps. And then as we were finishing up Ginger Snaps, I think I was back in New Zealand, and that's why I was asking Lucy, can you be, it was that time period.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I'll have to go and watch your episodes because I love Xena.
Yeah, so I started directing in, I want to say season 5, but it could have been season 4. And I did this episode that got banned. It was quite violent, I guess. And not my fault. In the writing, it had some portrayals of Hindu gods that I guess some people didn't enjoy. Didn't enjoy. And so there was a bit of a backlash against the episode. And as a result, the broadcaster took it off the air. I like to think that like it was, the fact that it was too violent and too extreme. That was eventually it did get aired with a disclaimer. Yeah. The episode is called The Way. And because Rob liked it so much, he hired me to do the season opener of the next season called Fallen Angel. So Fallen Angel is the season opener which was, every episode of Xena was just whack, like totally Rob Tappert was like pushing it in crazy directions, and it was hilarious fun to do the show.
That's awesome. When I was working for Ghost House for Sam and Rob, they were shooting Ash versus the Evil Dead in New Zealand.
Yes.
And so I got to, be a part of that. Something that I always thought while I was watching Orphan Black, I just love the Parent Trap style swapping. That's my favorite aspect of the show. The drama ends, all the conspiracies end. They're just living in Bailey Downs. I always wanted just like a sitcom style show of just Tatiana Maslany having to switch places with her sisters for weird, stupid reasons, lie to husbands, lie to girlfriends. I wonder if you guys ever kind of had that idea.
We want to do that. Like, all I want is Tatiana to agree to come back, like, and do a 10-year, like, all the clone. I want to see what the clones are doing 10 years from now. And there's no big conspiracy going on anymore. Everyone's just living their lives.
Yeah.
And I want to see what they're doing. So can you convince Tatiana to do that? Make that.
I'll try.
Do you have any pull with her?
I don't. I'm
really trying to convince her that it's a good idea.
Yeah. I did want to ask you if there's anything, I don't know if you can say anything, but if there's anything you could say just about what you're working on or anything about the Ginger Snaps show, I don't know.
I can say that Ginger Snaps, the TV series, is a hot property right now for us. It is fully something that is consuming our focus, trying to kind of get that to be. We've been keen on making it as a TV series for some time, and it's been a journey, but it is definitely fully of the focus of things right now. And for myself, I'm going to do the Netflix Mae Martin show called Tall Pines.
Oh,
Mae Martin is doing a limited series. So awesome. That's what I'm going to spend a little bit of my summer doing.
Tall Pines. I'll look out for that one for sure. Well, thank you, John. It was really a pleasure to get to meet you and to talk your ear off about Ginger Snaps and Orphan Black.
Nice to meet you too, Leif.
That is it for Orphan Black.
Was that it for Ginger Snaps as well?
Wait, sorry. That's it for Ginger Black. Dang it.
Good old Ginger Black.
That's it for both Ginger Snaps and Orphan Black.
Okay, there we go. That made a little sense.
Oh,
Mr. Gilter's walk.
Gilter's alleged walk.
Mr. Gilter's alleged walk.
The next thing we need to do is somehow connect this to another Cinderella story. That's the hard part. It was easy connecting Orphan Black and Ginger Snaps, obviously.
Yeah.
The connection is not a Cinderella story, the first one in the series, but another Cinderella story, the second one in the series. Now, this was directed by Damon Santostefano. And we are joined today by director-filmmaker Damon Santostefano. Welcome to our podcast.
Greetings, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. So I had a chance to check out some of your podcasts and notice that in February you interviewed Michael Ferris.
We did, yeah.
Who I have known for 30 years.
Whoa. Really?
He actually wrote with his partner the screenplay for the very first movie I directed. And then I hired him and his partner on multiple movies after that. And he's amazing. Very articulate guy.
No, we love talking to Michael Ferris. He was great. I had no idea that you'd worked with him.
Me neither.
I missed that.
That Catwoman story is pretty harrowing. I remember I remember him telling me that story as it was happening. And it was just like, I'm so sorry.
I mean, he accepted the Razzie, so...
Did he really?
Yeah.
He did, yeah. He went to the award ceremony. So did Halle Berry.
No way, she didn't go.
She did.
She did?
She went.
Yep.
And she apologized for being in that movie to the
No
crowd.
way.
She did, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
You can watch it on YouTube.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Oh, man.
Another Cinderella Story has the song Tell Me Something I Don't Know, Something I Don't Know.
Hey, this sounds like it's going to be great evidence.
Just a random note. I love how not only does that song start the movie, but characters throughout this movie keep saying, "Tell me something I don't know." Keep saying that.
You were paying a lot more attention than I was.
Say that.
I mean, sorry. What I meant to say was, dude, tell me something I don't know. Come on.
I actually like Another Cinderella Story
I
better than a lot of the others.
I thought it was fun.
I really like the stepmom, Dominique.
Yeah. I just have to say that I fully believe that her stepmom, is a military trained, agent woman, because of the way she acts and talks. The first thing she says to her stepdaughter in the movie is most girls would kill to be you. Do you feel that? That's me choking you.
I'm choking you from a distance, choking you.
She's got an edge to the things that she says. But also, we know she's a military woman because she is played by the woman who played Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph.
Right, yes. Jane Lynch,
Yeah.
most famous for being in Glee, the show. But yeah.
No, Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph.
I think that her backstory was already in the screenplay and it needed more and it needed enhancement and it needed a complete tone, but we really didn't have that until we cast Jane. I pitched Jane to Warner Brothers and they said, that sounds perfect. Let's see if she's available. And thank God she was. Because the thing about Jane is she is a master improviser. She comes from that school of actors who have all made those improvised movies together, Christopher Guest's movies. And so she was really great at reading scenes and then pitching jokes. How about if I try this? And how about if I say this instead? And so choking you from a distance, she invented that. And then as soon as she started on a roll, I'd go, do another one. Okay, do one about monkeys. Now do one about, and she would just go on and on and on. It was amazing. And then that's gold. You can go in the cutting room and just create, the funnier version of it.
My first evidence that perhaps Selena Gomez is a clone in this Cinderella program is that she is a dancer and a singer and a skateboarder and an orphan who lives in a laundry room. It's like she was designed in a lab to be the most awesome, cool main character girl. Dude. Oh, wait, she was designed in a lab.
Hey!
Because she's a clone.
You're right. It couldn't be that she was just written that way because she's in a movie.
I think that like Orphan Black, they kind of designed them all to have special skills. In Orphan Black, it's never stated, but kind of implied. Cosima is ridiculously smart. Helena is an insane assassin. Sarah is, a grifter who can trick people into doing things, but not very well.
No.
Sarah honestly sucks.
Okay, as far as the Cinderella story 2, Another Cinderella Story goes, I can easily buy that Selena Gomez's character is being put through some strange training program, since she seems to be some sort of social pariah who they're forcing to attend dance lessons all alone behind a one-way mirror so that no one has to see her, but she can mimic all of their actions.
And that's a very symbolic scene. You've got the symbolism of the mirror. Dissociating is often described as going through the looking glass. They say they
MK
use
Ultra
like
stuff.
Alice in Wonderland as like a trigger to get people to dissociate. So she is through the looking glass. She's on the other side of the mirror here.
Wild.
And even though it's not a mirror for her, she is acting as if it is a mirror because she's doing exactly what the guy is doing.
Mirroring him. That celebrity dancer dude is so into that mirror. He is all over that mirror. He's like making love to that mirror in front of everybody.
Because Selena Gomez is doing her job. He can, well, I think that
can't see
what
her. He just sees himself.
Exactly. He sees himself. And that's how they're going to get him to fall in love with her, because they know that mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery.
Wow.
And that's why they're subconsciously instilling her. She's dissociating this scene. Obviously, like if you just look at her, the way she's dancing, like she's clearly out of it. And they're teaching her like subconsciously mimic this guy, be what trippy. This guy wants.
Yeah, there's that moment that I asked Drew to do where he senses somebody on the other side of the glass. Mm-hmm. There it is. Mind Control by Selena the Clone. That's where the temporal synchronous injection went right into his brain. I can see it.
Regardless of theory, though, that is a really good scene, and I applaud the choreography there.
Yeah, Michelle Johnston choreographed it and had the idea of the mirror. Brilliant, in my opinion. It completely reinvented what that scene was going to be in a way that was like the showstopper you needed. Yeah, what we didn't know was that Selena could actually use a microwave signal through the glass to penetrate Joey's brain to make him suddenly sense that she's there. And as soon as he sensed her and he was sentient to the wave, he became under her control. That's
exactly what happened. That's it.
You solved it.
So that you didn't even know while you were directing it.
But now it all makes sense, because one of the next scenes where he doesn't know what she looks like, or does she? And there's that dinner table scene. She's serving. And he's getting this sense that he knows who she is while she's trying to hide her face, but he can still sense her there too, because she's using, wow.
See, the subtle nuances in your directing of this movie are just so far reaching.
The big connection that we have to mention, which is where all these universes come together, is that she has two wicked stepsisters. They are played by actors Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel. Those are the actors who played Bridget and Ginger in Ginger Snaps.
Wow. Dude, they're much less cool in this movie.
Yeah, well, they're comic relief. Well, it's weird because Emily Perkins, who plays Bridget, and this one plays Brit. Oh, what? Hey, that sounds kind of similar.
Oh, because every clone has similar names. Wait.
No, I think that was Damon Santostefano putting in like a hint of like, hey,
he knew
where they're coming from. That was on purpose. Bridget, Brit,
It wasn't, because they were named in the script before they were cast. But good catch.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Catherine
Isabel's name is Bree, which doesn't sound anything like Ginger. So
no.
But you don't cast the two girls from Ginger Snaps as sisters in your movie. That's not a coincidence.
No, I could totally buy that. Like that's pretty odd, unless those two girls have like a contract where they say we'll never be in a movie unless it's together.
Yeah, out by 15 or dead in the scene, but together forever.
Exactly.
That's their actual fact.
I was going to say is they actually are the girls from Ginger Snaps. Wow.
Well, I have to say, blessed with those two actors. And at first, I thought I was going to be able to cast them in the United States out of LA. And when I was talking to the casting director about it, they're like, no, these have to be hired out of Canada. And I'm like, but okay. So when I got to Canada, we were beginning to cast it, and I realized the best way for these characters to work is if I found two actors that essentially were an act, that had already done this before, that knew each other, that had each other's cues, who had each other's comic timing down, who could immediately dive in and do what, like basically elevate what was already written. And I had seen some of Ginger Snaps and realized, oh, that's it. That has to be them. And, we got lucky. They were available. They came in, and the audition cracked me up. My sides were hurting. The producer was pissing himself, and we were like, well, we're done. We've got them. And they did such a fantastic job. And it was easy because they had this great rapport, and I gave them very, very simple direction on what to do so they'd have a lot of contrast. And they had a blast with it. They were and so much fun to be with on set. They are the evil stepsisters, and so they have to be formidable enemies.
Yeah.
I have 3 sisters, and so what happens with siblings who just have to, and I was one of them, who have to sort of lord over their younger siblings in order to get what they want. I was just looking for the funny, but also, slightly serrated version of that, so that it wouldn't just fall flat. It really needed to feel like they were the worst sisters on the planet to have. And one of the goals that I think we found was that they were just narcissists. Sort of turning that dial up was a lot of fun.
It's no coincidence. If these two are sisters in this movie, we know, as we've already proven, that they are clones. So who's to say there couldn't be other clones of them working with this Cinderella program that already does Cinderella clones?
Wow.
Just to know, though, they're not clones of each other. They are just clones.
Sorry.
They're two individuals.
They're clones of
just because it's easy to mess up that.
From the 1800s who lived for a long time as werewolves. Then eventually Neolution made clones of them. And some of them were given to Dominique, who is clearly a secret agent of some kind. Speaking of Dominique, she has Selena Gomez rub back cream on her back. The back cream is called Baby Got Back Knee. Its side effects are itching, redness, rashes, drowsiness, fainting, weight gain, mood swings, restless leg syndrome, agoraphobia, and more weight gain.
Oh no.
If you experience new or increased gambling or sexual urges, have a wonderful weekend and then consult your doctor.
Wow. Dude, now that's a commercial. Oh man. I'm going to put on my back knee cream and just hit up Vegas.
I wrote that.
Oh,
good job. We both loved it.
and in the, because we realized in the cutting room, once we were finished shooting, it would be more authentic if we had a disclaimer like all pharmaceutical commercials do. And this was based on an existing pimple cream ad. And so I just wrote that and we put the text in, and it flashes so quickly, you have to be a fan to catch it. And the studio, I'm not sure they ever read it, but
probably
I doubt it.
And if they did, they probably thought it was funny. So that was one of the sneaky things. I just love doing little sneaky things like that just to add, add the joke to the joke and see if it works.
Yeah. This is the best parts of any movie.
Great. We love finding sneaky things, so I'm glad we caught one of them.
The young girl they got to play young Selena Gomez does not look like her at all, in my opinion.
No, oh my gosh. Okay, so yes,
it's like the furthest from her. That young girl has a gigantic mouth. Selena Gomez has the world's tiniest mouth.
Right.
They look completely different.
Her stepsisters put her on the couch and forced her to watch a video that she made when she was quote unquote younger. And of course, side note, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel are great. I love the way Catherine Isabel is like, no, just watch. It gets better.
Yes.
It's really fun delivery.
Yes, the torture.
Selena Gomez, when she was younger, was recording love videos to Joey, the Mark. My question is, how long has Joey been a big star? Presumably, he's supposed to be close to
like 5.
Selena's age. But if you look, she holds up a magazine. If you look at him on the cover of the magazine, he's the same age.
Uh-oh.
He's not younger.
Well, that's weird.
So
Okay.
either this proves, if we weren't convinced that Selena was a clone, here's the proof. Either the girl in this video is not her, and this was filmed recently, which doesn't seem to be the case because Selena is embarrassed, or she is a clone with growth accelerators like the ones in Star Wars. And she's only been alive a few years.
Right. Accelerated growth. Right. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense, actually.
So something weird is going on here with Selena's age, with this video, with Joey's age. Something doesn't quite match. And
by the way, I appreciate that you're up for just calling her Selena, because I can't remember.
Yeah, I have no idea what her name is. If you didn't believe me that there's something weird going on with age and also with the 3 twins in this family. Sorry, with the 3 clones in this family.
3 twins? Okay. That doesn't even make sense. You can't have 3 twins, they'd be triplets.
Dominique says, the twins are turning 16 next week, referring to Bridget and Ginger, or Britt and whatever the other one's name is. She says, and they'll keep turning 16 until I tell them to stop. Because they're having their birthday, and Selena, she says they were turning 16, and Selena's like, didn't they turn 16 last year? So something's going on with age here. Like maybe Selena just had a rapid age growth, but also they can also stop these clones from aging when they want to. And the twins, Bridget and Ginger, are not going to be older than 16 until their handler tells them to stop.
Yep. She said so. They'll keep turning 16.
That's right, of course. So the truth is that offset, we had a rejuvenation tube, and we essentially, it's basically a time portal that can actually travel in 2 directions, future or past. And if you step into it, you don't leave this temporal place. It's temporal synchronous, so you stay where you are. You just age either down or up. And so we put Selena's character in that tube, and then as a 9-year-old, and then aged her up and shot the next scene as an 18 or 16-year-old, I think.
Yeah.
And the poor stepsister characters had to step into that every morning to not age.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man, that's why they were so mad at Mary.
I mean, wouldn't you be if you were like every morning, like you can't age, get in there? However, at a certain age, I would imagine anybody would get in that thing and go, yes.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
This is going to be like our greatest episode ever. This is fantastic. It all makes perfect sense now.
Like now I'm completely seduced by all of this.
I believe that these Cinderella clones are conditioned to react to clocks ringing, and they drop something that will attract their target. Because in most of the Cinderella movies, this happens.
That's true. I just have to say, instead of having her leave behind a slipper, like a glass slipper, they have her drop her Zune. I just thought that was hilarious because it really dates this movie.
It is very quaint, isn't it? Because it's like, by the way, what the hell is a Zune?
It's like as if you're watching an old movie where, like, somebody accidentally dropped their typewriter as they left the building. Oh, whose fingers fit in this typewriter? Which I just thought
that's it for print.
Well, like a Zune is just an appliance that is not in use. Like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She was carrying a typewriter under her arm the entire time and then drops it. Oops. Right. Or maybe a printing press. That would have been,
yeah, there you go.
On wheels. Because we needed the songs captured on something for the lead character, Drew Seeley, to know about the song and know it was her. So it had to be an iPod. But Apple wouldn't give us permission.
Oh, no.
No, of course not.
It was like, wait a minute, guys, don't you? And they're like, no, thank you. So we went to whoever made the Zune. I think it was Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, please put the Zoom in your movie, please.
Well, I mean, come on. Everyone wants their product to be held by Selena Gomez. She was huge at the time.
I know. What's wrong with Apple?
Well, I'll tell you what. Nobody knew that she would become the megastar that she was to become as a recording artist. And I think if Apple had known, they wouldn't have said no.
So what do you think? Do you think the Cinderella clone theory holds any water? Is this an expanded universe? And is the Cinderella story program actually a program for having clones collect high value marks?
Well, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's true. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. So this theory has a lot of moving parts that need to fit together. Now, let me try and go over some of the most important evidences that you've dropped on us, and I'll tell you if it makes sense to me. So there's an evil corporation which exists in Ginger Snaps and in Orphan Black doing crazy experiments. They started cloning some werewolf girls from the 1800s, and those girls were the two girls from Ginger Snaps. Okay, that makes sense. The two girls from Ginger Snaps also appear in another Cinderella story. Yes, they definitely do. So that makes sense. That connects those three series together. That means that all the Cinderella story movies are connected to the world of Orphan Black and to the world of Ginger Snaps. We know that the Cinderellas from the Cinderella story movies are clones because they're all orphans. Well, because they're in the same universe.
They age weirdly. There's evidence of that.
Okay, it's true.
And also, in one of them, their stepsisters are clones of the Fitzgerald sisters.
Yes, that's another Cinderella story. Clearly, these Cinderellas are always ending up with like celebrities or, rich people or, somehow high value people. And they're doing so in situations that are like definitely strange. So, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think I can buy it. We've connected the universes together, and something weird is definitely going on with these Cinderellas that is pretty much inexplainable outside of the context that you have provided. Eliminating all impossible options. Whatever remains must be true, and that is the explanation that you've provided. So I will say, I believe it. Clearly a shared universe. Duh.
Yeah,
like
foolproof.
I mean, this has to have been intended,
Airtight.
Right? Airtight. I mean, I give it like, 2 thumbs up. A great theory.
Wow.
But this is how all of the crazy conspiracy theories start, is like the association of one thing with another thing with another thing with it. Until you are seeing UAPs flying around in your bathroom. It's like,
that's it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. This is the kind of crazy, wacky, zany stuff you can expect from the Popcorn Isn't Real.
And if you want to keep expecting this kind of stuff, we've got a Patreon. Just a reminder that our podcast is entirely independent. We don't, have any sponsorships. We're not owned by any company. It's just us doing this in our off time. We're both working full-time jobs too. So if you like what we're doing, want to support it, go on our Patreon and become a subscriber.
Great talking to you guys. You're a breath of fresh air, but also, like, growing up, were you two essentially doing this as kids? And then found yourself in a podcast.
Basically, I mean, when Torvald moved to Denmark, we would just talk to each other for like 3 hours every Saturday. And usually it was about movies, and often we had theories. So I said, we should just record this.
Oh, that's great.
We just talk about our own theories, other people's theories. We'd research them and just chat about them. And then, Leif was like, why aren't we recording this? We could make a whole podcast, and that's what we do.
Wow, good for you. That's great.
Music for this episode was provided by Christine.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next time, remember the popcorn isn't real.